From Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Saamiyah Syed. Our top story tonight, the U.S. Department of Justice has charged more than 300 people with over $800 million in COVID-19 fraud. The department has established 2 new COVID-19 fraud task forces. The agency says over 700 enforcement actions have been conducted. These include criminal and civil indictments, guilty pleas, and convictions. The total amount of funds seized in COVID-19 fraud cases now exceeds $1 billion. The White House has urged Congress to triple the number of task forces, invest more in fraud and identity theft prevention, and double the statute of limitations for these crimes. The Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit against Spacex in Northern California. It alleges that the company discriminated in its hiring of refugees and asylum seekers by discouraging them from applying for jobs. Spacex has falsely claimed that federal export control laws limited hiring to U.S. citizens and green card holders. The Justice Department says these laws do not impose such restrictions. The agency is seeking a court order requiring Spacex to stop discriminating against refugees and asylum seekers in its hiring practices. It is also seeking damages for victims of the company's discrimination. Spacex has not yet responded to the lawsuit. New York State is looking to address the housing shortage crisis by offering homeowners assistance. The city has set aside $85 million to help homeowners build accessory dining units in their own backyards. The New York State Homes and Community Renewal, which is in charge of the initiative, said as of August 15th, more than $20 million have been distributed. Homeowners statewide can receive grants of up to $125,000 to build an additional housing unit on their property. Jolie Milstein, president of the New York State Association for Affordable Housing, stressed the importance of exploring all options to address the housing shortage. These grants are not paid directly to homeowners, but to local governments and nonprofits that distribute the funds. To apply for grants, homeowners must meet a certain income threshold, which varies by where they live in the state. Milstein says the program will spur home construction in areas where it is allowed. Former President Donald Trump says he skipped the first Republican presidential debate to avoid harassment from other candidates. He said he did not want to give them a platform to attack him. Trump criticized Fox News Network, which hosted Wednesday's debate, saying it was not friendly towards him. The 4 times indicted ex-president said his top priority, if re-elected, will be to keep the borders closed. He claimed Biden is the most corrupt and incompetent president Americans have had. Trump said his top priority, if re-elected in 2024, is securing the border. Trump also repeated his call for an end to the Russia-Ukraine war. Climate change is causing water insecurity, posing a major threat to humanity. UK-based charity Oxfam says water scarcity will lead to more hunger, disease, and displacement. In a report released Thursday, Oxfam presented a series of climate scenarios. These show expected changes in temperature and rainfall through 2040 and 2050. The Middle East, the Horn of Africa, Central Africa, West Africa, and Asia will be the regions most affected by the water crisis. East Africa could be affected by both severe floods and droughts, leading to an increase in mosquito-borne diseases. Oxfam researchers predict a decline in rainfall in the Middle East, leading to a deterioration in food security. Rising sea levels will affect Asia, potentially leading to an increase in diseases such as malaria and dengue. Currently, 2.3 billion people worldwide lack access to safe drinking water, and 3.6 billion people lack safe sanitation. The report shows lack of investment in water systems, poor water management, erosion, pollution, and overuse of underground aquifers are making the crisis worse. Human rights activists have renewed their call for the Burmese government to grant full rights to the Rohingya community. This comes on the 6th anniversary of the Rohingya exodus from Burma in the wake of a military genocide against the Muslim minority. Activists said the junta in the country continues to create conditions to destroy the Rohingya and erase their identity. Among other things, they are being forced to accept the National Verification Card, or NVC, which identifies Rohingya as foreigners. Rights groups say the NVCs are discriminatory and violate binding provisional measures issued by the International Court of Justice in January 2020. Zhao Win is an activist with the human rights group Fortify Rights. Win says the Rohingya are citizens of Burma and should be considered valued members of the pro-democracy revolution by Burmese citizens. The ICJ's measures specifically require Burma to protect the Rohingya from genocide in the Rakhine state. The Rohingya have been denied citizenship and basic rights in Burma for decades. More on how Switzerland will offer a special passport for Afghans comes with details after the break, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Switzerland has issued a special passport for Afghans living in the country who no longer have valid papers. The decision was made following a ruling by the Federal Administrative Court in July. It called on the government to consider them stateless. The ruling was obtained by a young Afghan who has lived in Switzerland for 7 years and holds a valid residence permit. He could not travel because he had been trying unsuccessfully for years to obtain new papers in Afghanistan. With the new passport, called Green Swiss Passport for Foreigners Without Papers, Afghans can travel to the vast majority of countries. It is valid for all Afghans who have been settlement or residence permit in Switzerland. Asylum seekers or temporarily admitted persons must provide a valid reason for travel. The court decision says the Taliban government in Afghanistan is not a legitimate government and therefore may not issue passports. The ruling also says the Swiss government is legally obligated to allow stateless Afghans to travel. The new passport is valid for 5 years and can be renewed. The Israeli army on Thursday detained 40 Palestinians in separate areas of the occupied West Bank. The non-profit Palestinian Prisoner Society said Israeli forces detained people during a campaign in the provinces of Hebron, Tulkarm, Jenin, Bethlehem, and Jerusalem, among others. According to the NGO, the Israeli army has arrested over 100 Palestinians in the last 3 days. Israeli forces frequently conduct raids on Palestinians' home in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. The Israeli army on Thursday detained 40 Palestinians in separate areas of the occupied West Bank. The non-profit Palestinian Prisoner Society said Israeli forces detained people during a campaign in the provinces of Hebron, Tulkarm, Jenin, Bethlehem, and Jerusalem, among others. According to the NGO, the Israeli army has arrested over 100 Palestinians in the last 3 days. Israeli forces frequently conduct raids on Palestinians' home in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. The COVID-19 pandemic and the rising cost of living have led to a significant increase in poverty in developing Asian countries. According to a report by the Asian Development Bank, more than 155 million people in the region were living in extreme poverty in 2022. They had to get by on less than $2.15 per day. This represents an increase of over 67 million people. The bank previously estimated around 75 to 80 million people in Asia fell into extreme poverty due to the pandemic in the previous year. It projects that by 2030, about 1 billion people in the region could be living on $3.65 to $6.85 per day. The bank recommends governments of Asia's 46 developing countries take several actions. These include strengthening social programs, improving access to financial services, investing in infrastructure, and promoting technological innovation. ADB chief economist Albert Park stressed that while Asia and the Pacific are recovering from the pandemic, the rising cost of living is hampering progress into poverty reduction. The East African Community, or EAC, has begun talks with Somalia on the country's membership in the regional bloc. The 9-day talks are being held in Nairobi, Kenya. The EAC is a regional intergovernmental organization established in 1999. It has 7 member states: Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Somalia applied for membership in 2012. The talks are expected to focus on key areas such as political, legal, and institutional aspects, infrastructure, productive and social sectors, and economic and trade issues. Rebecca Miano is Kenyan Cabinet Secretary for the EAC's air raid and semi-arid lands and the regional development. She said the group will benefit greatly from Somalia's membership. She adds that its admission would usher in a large and expanded market, giving a big boost to the private sector. Somalia's planning minister, Mohammed Abdulrahman Sheikh Farah, agreed that adding EAC membership would provide Somalia a possible solution to security issues. EAC Secretary General Peter Mathuki highlighted the importance of the Somali coastline. He says it provides an opportunity to increase intra-regional trade and improve the lives of people in East Africa. The United Arab Emirates has renamed a famous mosque in Abu Dhabi after Mary, the mother of Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him. The house of worship was previously named Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Mosque. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan says he ordered the renaming to strengthen the bonds of humanity between the followers of different religions. The move was welcomed by religious leaders in the UAE. That includes Andrew Thompson, a senior clergyman at St. Andrew's Church. He says the renaming is a gesture of the religious tolerance and symbolizes the UAE's commitment to peaceful coexistence. Jeremy Rin is senior pastor at the Evangelical Community Church in Abu Dhabi. He called the move a pace setter in the region for a peaceful coexistence and cooperation. In recent years, the UAE has opened its doors to people of all faiths, building mosques, churches, synagogues, and temples. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.